Hey everybody, Bart the Nature Guy here today, talking to you about day hikes. And so this is a great time of year to get out and kind of take these nice long walks. The bugs are down, the pollen is down. I can tell you by, once that snow hit and that frost comes, a lot of the pollens go. So as far as like my nose goes, I'm breathing good right now because all those pollens have kind of died off right now. But this time of year also means if it's cold like this right now, it's about 15 to 20 degrees. My hands are actually getting a little bit cold. But when you're taking walks during this time of year, you especially want to make sure you have some gear with you when you go out on a hike, any hike, because a lot of times that snow is covering up maybe the trail that you're normally used to walking on. Let's say you have a normal trail, maybe cut through a neighborhood or a woods that you typically feel very comfortable in, but now all of a sudden, whether the snow comes or the darkness sets in this time of year, the sun is starting to set at a pretty early hour, especially as we go into December and January. We're going to see that sun go away quite a bit. And just by the time you get done with school, maybe do some dinner and you want to take out for a little hike or a little walk to refresh a little bit, it's going to be dark. And so you really want to make sure, number one, you have the right gear. Number two, those trails that you normally take might look a little different as well. So just kind of keeping that as mind that this time of year you don't want to get lost. Typically with day hiking, that is the most common person to get lost because people will get out of their car, and I'll see if I can grab a water bottle here. I got a little water bottle. So they grab their kid's old water bottle. They're like, I'm going to go take a hike. They walk out, they grab their little, Camelback from their kids. They have it with water. They decide to walk it because it's not going to be that heavy. And they're in this gear right now. Maybe they'll have a pair of mittens on, and then they hike, and then they get lost. Or I actually had a friend of mine step off a deck a few weeks ago. She just took one step off a deck. I mean, she shattered her ankle. It was gone. I mean, surgery, the whole works. And all of a sudden you're sitting, now it's almost, the sun's starting to drop now, probably about 4 o'clock right now. And if you're out in the middle of that woods right there, and you fall down to the ground, and you can't move, and if you've ventured out at all, let's say you're at a state park where you might not even have good cell phone coverage, you're kind of stuck. And so if that were to happen, you want to make sure that you have some gear with you that at least helps you make it a little bit more comfortable for yourself. If you do get in a spot where you do have to stop for a long period of time, you want to have some ways to get yourself warm. Stay warm. Number one, that's wearing a good jacket. You see me wear my orange hat here. I got my orange pack. That's actually because in Minnesota, during this time of year of fall, is also a hunting season, and especially with deer season. You see my arm, it kind of blends into the trees back there. It's about the same color as the trees. And so animals in nature don't tend to be big, bright animals. And so, but this type of color generally blends in with nature, and most like deer, squirrels, they're all kind of colors that mimic nature. And we definitely don't want to mimic nature during hunting season. And so, especially if you're a person like myself that likes to venture off trail quite a ways, that's where hunters go to kind of find animals that have kind of like gotten away from the human experience. And so I want to make sure that those hunters can see me as I'm walking through the woods. So I'm always going to find myself some good blaze orange. Any bright color will do. Blues, reds, that will be helpful versus more like wearing something that's kind of like this olive drab coat that I'm wearing today. So make sure you have some good bright colors out there. It also helps if you should get stopped. You want people to see where you are. If you should fall down, and let's say you can't get back up, you want to be able to at least take this bag and maybe hoist it up on a branch so you're up above. Any height's going to help somebody find you. If they're shining a flashlight trying to locate you and you didn't make it out when you expected, seeing that bag up in the air is going to be a huge help. In a situation where you might need some support getting yourself out of the woods should you trip and fall or anything like that and can't get out yourself. So number one thing is water. This is not a large amount of water. One of the things that I found that's one of my greatest prevention tools for dehydration is actually to hydrate before I leave for the walk. So I'm going to use my water mostly on my walk out. So I think about it on my last 50%, not my first 50%. When I leave the car, when I'm about to walk, I'm actually going to take down quite a bit of water. That way I don't get like a third or fourth of the way through the walk. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to my first kind of chug up a hill or whatever. I get thirsty. I chug this down, and now the 75% of the walk I don't have water because I drank all this right away on that first kind of exertion that I created for myself. So I really try to hydrate on the front end, not use this on my walk right away. I try to really save this till I absolutely need it, way on the back end of my walk if possible, or rehydrate when I get back to the car. So the less I can use water, that way if I do get in a situation where I'm not getting out in the way I expected on my time frame that I thought I was going to be on, I have that water with me. So super important. That also goes into some of the things that you're going to have in your bag as well. So I often, I showed you gloves, but if I've ever tripped and fallen, if you've ever like gotten sledding and gotten snow inside your mittens, that's terrible and it sucks. And so I will almost always bring a second set of gloves or mittens, even if they're the small ones. Like these are just those little hardware store gloves. Even just a second set, if they're dry, that's better than wet. Even these are like really nice backpacking, skiing gloves, spend a lot of money on them. These wet is going to be less than these dry. So these 99-cent gloves are going to be better dry than these very expensive backpacking that if they're soaked and packed full of snow. So just remember, I always bring a second set. I have my hat on here, but I'm also going to bring a second thing to put on my head. That's going to be more like a balaclava. So it's actually more like a hood that I can put my face in. I like it too because I can put my hood up, and it's also a mask in the front. So it's a great secondary source. Should it get a little bit colder, like once the sun drops, I can put this on for added heat. But if for some reason this hat gets dropped or isn't working anymore, it gets wet, I can put something dry on. So I almost always in the wintertime have a second set of mittens and a second hat along with me. In situations. I actually just read a story of a man that was out in the mountains, and he sweated so much trying to get, it started to snow around him, like what you see here, and it started to build up, and he sweat so much he got super chilled off and was just so happy. He actually had packed a second set of long underwear inside his day pack. It wasn't like backpacking. He just put it in there, and he needed, because he was so sweaty from working so hard. He was up in like thigh deep snow in these mountains, and he gotten so sweaty, and he just started to get chilled, and he could feel himself starting to shake. Even though he's working real hard, the effects of the cold with the sweat started to really take its effect. He had to completely get out of everything, and he was able to get those dry long underwear on. So just that backup piece, long underwear actually can be put in a bundle that big. Wouldn't take a lot of space in the pack. Now in Minnesota, we don't have those level of mountains, and usually not that level of snow that comes unexpectedly. In the mountains, things happen real fast sometimes. So other things I'm going to bring. I'm going to make sure I have first aid kits. Now, inside this first aid kit, I might have something like a heat source, which is like some matches. I actually have a water purification tablets in here as well as all the Band-Aids and everything else. The other thing I might have in here is some sort of, this is like it's a little tube of glue. Now, this is more like a super glue for like if my shoe were to get a hole in it or something. But they also have inside of these kits sometimes they have antiseptic and medical grade super glue. So should you get a bad cut and that bandage isn't working well, it's almost like a super glue you can put over that, pinch it shut and hold it in place, and hopefully that'll hold that wound shut so you're not bleeding so much. And then you can get a Band-Aid and keep that wound clean. But you don't want to use like a normal super glue like this for that. This is more for repairs, and I put that in there just for that reason, to make sure that if a shoe gets a hole in it, if something on my backpack rips, or maybe like something like this cracks, I might be able to do some repair so my water's not dripping out on me, that sort of thing. So something to think about also in Minnesota is bug spray. So not this time of year obviously, but for the majority of our summers we're dealing with bugs. I don't use it very often, but it's nice to have, and I always make sure I have some in my day pack just in case I get caught in a situation where those bugs do find me. I tend to find that either they're around you or they're not. Bug spray is going to be something I'm going to want to bring. I also bring an emergency poncho. It's very small. I mean, it's very compact. I mean, I can put it in my hand. That's a whole poncho. It's about the size of this jacket right here, but it's clear, it's plastic. I actually would use this, especially if you're in a spot where you're injured or hurt or you're lost. One of the biggest things you can do if you find yourself lost is actually not get yourself more lost. And we'll talk about that when we get into more survival stuff down the road. But you don't want to get yourself more lost, which means staying put. And so you might want to sit down, but if it's weather like this, how are you going to sit down without getting your pants wet, especially if you're not wearing like snow pants and you weren't expecting that. Something like this in a day pack like this can be a huge help just to give you a dry spot to sit down on, and that will kind of keep you dry, which keeps you warm. So warmth and dryness are like they work together, so they're symbiotic. So if you're wet in the wintertime like this, and it's going to be cold. It just happens that way. So something to think about there. I'll also sometimes bring a life straw. You'll see these on commercials all the time, but it is actually just like a big straw. You pull through like that. You can dip this right into a puddle. You can drip this into a stream, anything like that. So if for some reason, I don't know about you, but I've definitely spilled water bottles plenty of times, and all of a sudden your water source is gone. at least you have a secondary water source. So not only do you have those purification tablets with you in the first aid kit, but this is something quickly. And one thing you can do, so you're not like leaning into a stream, which you can actually fall in and put yourself in more danger. You can actually take this off, scoop it full of the nasty water, and then stick this in and drink it like a regular straw. So that way you're not trying to like bend over into a lake or a stream and actually put yourself closer to water. It can be really dangerous. It's a game changer, and it only takes seconds to put yourself in a really bad spot. So dipping your hand in, reaching in from a distance, getting that water that's not safe to drink, using a straw as a pure, this filtration system makes it safer to drink and keep the bacteria out of your system that's going to make you ill. That's a nice, easy system to keep yourself safe, keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself moving towards finding your way out. Other things I'm going to find in my bag here. It's like paracord. These are those classic paracord bracelets. If anybody's been in my class, we've generally made these. They have a nice little clip. But what this is, if anybody knows, like about 1 foot of paracord, if you undo all the paracord, if you actually start to strip it away, and if we get to hybrid classes at some point, I'll bring the paracord in and give each one of you a piece so all the distance is good. We can actually, I had one student make one piece of paracord by just taking thread by thread and kind of peeling it apart. It's all braided together. There's usually 7 or 8 strands inside the paracord and then an outer shell around that paracord. And he was in like a detention or in school suspension all day. And he slowly, just because he was bored, he just sit there and peeled apart this paracord. He made it almost 100 feet long out of a 1 foot piece. So he was able to get 100 threads. So something like this can be super helpful if you need to sew something, you need to be able to string something up. You just basically undo this, and then you got all this string here. This is probably about 20 feet of actual rope, and then if you were to break this rope apart and get into those individual strands, you can make it into almost like a fishing line diameter thread. So that's super helpful. I almost always carry something like this just as a backup. You don't know where you're going to need it, but if you need to put up a shelter, oftentimes I don't have it in here right now, but I would bring like even a 4x6 tarp that doesn't take up much room. Just one of those plastic tarps, big and bright. It's also nice for if you do get lost and they're searching for you, to be able to put that up just like the orange bag. It's a good visual for people to find you. The visuals that might also play out as well would be a flashlight. So having just a small flashlight in there, that way you're not using up your phone battery, because a lot of people get nervous. They're used to using their phone, but all of a sudden you're burning out your battery on your phone. You need to save that for communication. Having a battery like this, and I think I have in the bottom of here, if I can find it. I don't know if it'll be there. Well, I have a sound one, so one thing I do carry in here is a sound. A lot of people use whistles. If you're ever in a spot where you're incapacitated and not able to even blow out air strong enough to actually get that whistle to blow, this is like a little personal screamer. And it's a little, you can put these on doors in like hotels and stuff, so if anybody tries to open your door, but it's just got a little pin, and if it pulls out, that sound happens. And so that's a really nice system as far as like if you were just feeling injured, you weren't able to kind of answer calls if somebody was looking for you and you were lost, that's a great sound to put out there. It's going to cut through almost all the wind and anything like that because it's so high pitched. So that's a good one. The other one I have in here, and I don't want to dig through it, I'll see if I can find it though. We'll see. I'll dig in here and see if I can find it for you guys. I don't know if it'll be in there or not. I don't know if I can reach it. It's in there. It's a glow stick. And it's the same reason why you have a battery. So I bring it as a backup to the battery light. So if you have a flashlight, if that goes dead, what do you use? If you don't want to use your phone, you're trying to save. A glow stick can also just give you that sense of comfort, especially if you're stuck in one spot for a long time. And then I also bring calories. So I bring candy bars, old candy bars all the time. I bring peanut nut rolls just because it's raw peanuts just seems like a good protein source for me. So I'm always promoting the peanut nut rolls. Some people are allergic. There's lots of great bars, Cliff bars, Luna bars, just general granola bars that you can bring in. You just want calories, because if you go out and you get stuck, you need to have calories to come back out. And if anybody here has ever gotten to a point where you get super hungry or hangry, as some people call it, like that can be really detrimental to your thought process. You start to get frustrated, maybe with yourself or with others around you if you're lost as a group, because your calorie count is going down. And so you want to be able to keep your calories up, keep moving forward, keep your body is working as best you can. Having a couple candy bars, that gives you almost 1,000 calories real quick. I think I have 4 of them in there right now. And that's going to give me a lot of calories to get myself out of any situation. So day hiking can be super fun. You're going to want to use, when you go out, like I said, you're going to want to have a map of some sort. So you're going to want to have a map. You don't want to have a compass, but I'm not going to spend much time on that right now because I'm going to do maps and compasses with you in a couple weeks. But just remember, a lot of people, when I get, because we're so used to our phones now, we all do this. Like compasses won't work that way. So we got to hold them flat like this in our hands and keep them kind of parallel to the ground. If you keep them like this, not going to work. But everybody, almost all the students that I work with now, because of phones, we do this right away to get the answer of what we want. So we'll go through the basics of different compasses, how to use them, different parts of a compass, and actually there's different kinds of compasses for different situations. So I always make sure I carry a compass, because even though phones have compasses on there, even though you have Google Maps, you know, always making sure that you have a map of your location. Like I said, if it gets dark this time of year, that's a problem, and you want to know where you're at, and you want to be able to see where you are in relationship to what's on your phone, and also being able to line this up and know how to use it, which that's what we're going to do in a couple weeks probably. And as it gets a little bit colder, I love doing orienteering stuff in the wintertime. I used to do it actually in the schools that have students set up an orienteering course, but we will go through that in a couple weeks. So that's kind of a bag dump on a day pack for this type of weather, a little bit cooler weather here in Minnesota. So take care, everybody. Bart the Nature Guy. Peace out. Have a great day. Bye-bye.